A very good afternoon. Very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. That's nice. That's nice. Welcome to all panel experts here on the stage. We have the interesting session on the logistics, which talks about solution and innovation box related to heavy engineering, project logistics, and how SCM model for safe and efficient movement of the heavy over-dimensioned modular equipment we can handle so that our customer gets it safe, on time, and without any shortages. Just to start with, I would like to just introduce myself. I am Arun Banavali, basically a graduate mechanical engineer with 2 years specialization in supply chain and worked for 44 years, and out of that 20 years being in manufacturing called Chicago Pneumatic India Limited, and last job with Hindustan Construction Company 17 years. Last year I retired from HCC as a Vice President Sourcing and Supply Chain, and I would like to give, related to the project cargo, some of my exposure related to this topic, handling multi-mega size construction projects, either BOQ contract or EPC contract, having projects at cities, but more than that at the remote places. A type of projects being different at a time to be handled. HCC being a leader in hydel projects, we have dam to be constructed, barrages to be constructed, and many places powerhouses as well as hydro tunnels. Other type of projects are waterline projects for transportation of water, either above the ground or some of them about 80 to 100 meters down below the ground level, wherein you have to construct a tunnel, line it, and it becomes a pipe for water transportation. We had also road projects constructing several bridges to connect, and one of them you have seen Bandravali Ceiling in Bombay itself. We are also into the nuclear project, constructing reactor buildings. One of them, leading one, which was finished about 4 years before, just 20 kilometers from Kanyakumari, called Kudamkulam project, wherein we did 2 reactor building, each of 1000 megawatts. These hydel projects are normally in a hilly area, most of the remote places, and when you get the project, you will find at the first visit a thick forest and a river flowing, and nothing to stay and nothing available at that place. And this is the place we have to construct power projects which are having capacities of 300 or 1000 megawatts hydel power projects, needing huge construction machineries to be moved through a very hilly area, steep road, as well as very remote place where the type of bridges are considerably very narrow, making logistic challenges really difficult. One of the projects recently which we are doing, which is about 85 kilometers from Srinagar in Kashmir Valley, we had to import a tunnel boring machine. Once when it is assembled, it is about 120 meters long, single machine. It was ordered on a supplier at Italy, and it has to come from Italy to Nhava Sheva at Bombay for containerized consignments and ODC consignment at Bombay port. Number of containers for making this 120 meters long tunnel boring machine was 171 containers and 11 bulk cargo involved in it, and it had to move from Nhava Sheva and Bombay port all the way to further up 85 kilometers from Srinagar. The single largest consignment in bulk cargo was 57 tons, but almost 13 feet diameter, the cutter of the tunnel boring machine. The route survey when we did, we find that we had to move these all consignments all through Jawar tunnel, which is connecting between Jammu and Srinagar, and we had all challenges to identify how do we really move this consignment in a safe and constructive way. This talks about logistic planning of bulk cargo, project cargo. How do you plan it at supplier's end so that he makes it, packs it in such a way so that it becomes transport worthy in the place where we have to move this consignment. In project cargo, wherein the construction takes place only about 8 months or 9 months in a year, remaining time in a year is lost either due to rains, flood or snow. That means these project-based construction companies have to take their yearly turnover in 8 or 9 months. That means every day is important. They work for 24 hours a day in these 8 or 9 months, 7 days a week, all throughout. That means all the project cargo which are planned are required on time. Giving this particular background to the extent of today's topic is concerned, the difficulty faced, how project planning takes a very important role in ensuring that we are in a position to move the consignments, reach it to the right place on time, without any damages, without any shortages. We'll straightaway go to the questions, and in this panel discussion we have 5 speakers, panel experts. So we have 5 questions which will be asked to them. They will explain their expertise, their exposure, their way of mitigation risk. Each panel expert will have different questions and they will be deriving to give you exposure with their experience answering this question. This is about first round, and second round it is a passing round. That means we have only 2 questions. Any of the panel expert can take it and throw light what they have been doing in that particular field and how they are in a position to take the challenges and meet the requirements of the customer in the needy cases. Of course, we have kept 15 minutes for question and answers. So to make this particular session very interactive, being after lunch session. Shall we go first question to Mr. Kumar, Animesh Kumar. In case of Mr. Animesh Kumar, you can introduce yourself for half a minute.
Yeah, myself Animesh Kumar, I am founder, CEO and director of PDP Shipping and Projects Limited. We have been into project logistics, and many of the consignments we did that happened almost for the first time. Like we handled 425 ton single weight consignment of 13 meter of dimension and 9 meter of height, and the issue was that that consignment came earlier and the plan, the project at the offshore got deferred for 6 months. So it was an issue to how to store such a big consignment, and that was for Larsen & Toubro, one of the engineering giants. So when we provided them the solution that we can store it at Mumbai port, then the issue was that there was no crane in the vicinity, and how we can store this consignment. So we came out with the solution. We came out with the solution of storing the consignment using the hydraulics, property of the modular trailer, and then we do the floating load out operations. So when we do such kind of operations, n number of problems we face. Again, we did the towing of one of the massive ships that was first ship built up by the shipyard of Larsen and Toubro in Hazira, and that ship met some accident during the launching, and then there were n number of issues where we assisted them, like the integrity of the water, in order to tow that, because in order to repair the ships it requires to be jacking, I mean this dry docking. So we towed the ship. Then the buyer has got conditions like you need to tow with 3-meter draft only. So with the ship with 13-meter freeboard, towing with 3-meter draft, it was a big challenge. So this way we have been into heavy lift engineering, and in one more case that I would like to add, that it was 65 feet long consignment for a particular destination. For that there was no break bulk ship and the weight was 15 ton. So we loaded onto the container ship. When we planned it, the whole trade in the container ship was asking that, do you have no work? Why are you planning a break bulk consignment onto the container ship? The port rejecting the consignment. So in this way, when we handle project logistics, we have n number of questions, n number of limitations, and we feel happy in order to make the tailor-made solutions. And once the client, they imbibe faith in us and allow us to do the job, it's really a good challenge, and that we like. Thank you.
Mr. Kumar, Mr. Animesh Kumar, can you share your expertise in bringing in equipment technology in the integrated supply chain for lift, shift of project cargo consignment and its limitation in automation?
Sir, I would like to convey that heavy lift engineering transportation, it's a real challenge to automation. Reason being, for automation we require the defined fields, and these fields to be integrated in order to yield a product or a result. When we think of heavy lift engineering transportation, the very word heavy, it's a relative word. What is heavy for one may not be heavy for the other. So how much weight is a heavy weight? That needs to be defined. For countries like India, we have 50-ton consignment. As of now, we have developed from 20 ton to 50 ton. 50-ton consignments, we do not require any special effort to carry the consignments. It requires efforts, but not that much. So we have updated ourselves for moving the consignments from one part to the other part for 50-ton consignment. Similarly, in other countries like South Korea, Belgium, China, they deal 150-ton consignment in the similar fashion. For us, it becomes a heavy lift. For that, we require many kind of a special arrangement. If we go to the countries like Africa, even 35-ton becomes a heavy weight. So what is heavy, what is not heavy? It's a relative term. And how it is defined, like you told that when you were moving one of the consignments to Jammu and Kashmir, it was weighing some 50 ton, but that was a challenge. Why it was a challenge? Because it has to move through the hilly region and it was the steepy hills. So when we plan a consignment and we deal this consignment as a heavy lift, that means that for this particular consignment, some special efforts to be made, and these special efforts to be made are variable, are dependent on the various variables. And even these variables are having the limitations and they are chained to some other variables. So under these circumstances, we cannot think of automation. And that is why heavy lift engineering projects and transportation becomes a real challenge. Each and every consignment, each and every project that we do, we take it as a challenge. Because when we are carrying out the consignment, a number of problems come. And these problems, some of the problems, even the most skilled people they are doing, they fail to envision in advance. So what I want to say that, in heavy lift engineering transportation, that what is the most important part is the method. Which is the method we use in order to carry the consignment? What is the methodology? What is the equipment? What are the calculations? How we are applying the science and the application of the equipments under the various circumstances and limitations. These become very, very important. And that defines the capability of the project logistics service providers. Suppose that we are making the method statement, then there may be, and then we are executing the consignment. Any surprise at the 11th hour was so deadly. Those in the project logistics and the industries, they know it because many have burnt finger. Any surprise when we are handling the consignment as per the method statement and one particular surprise is coming, it is deadly. Similarly, there are project logistics service providers. They deliberately, I make it a caution, they deliberately indulge into omissions while preparing the method statement. These omissions are in fact commissioning of a crime, and the consignment gets stuck. For that there is no solution, because what we are discussing is the heavy lift consignment. For that we need to prepare in advance. There is no infrastructure. If there has been the infrastructure, we have elevated our level of handling and lifting heavy lift consignment. So infrastructure is not available. All of a sudden somebody is stuck with the problem. And what is the solution? The consignment gets delayed, the projects get deferred. At times it is stuck to such an extent that it is unbelievable. Again, when we are discussing of the handling and the automation is, I think it is very, very difficult, not at all, not at all I say applicable in the project logistics transportation. I take this opportunity to use this platform to convey that there are infrastructures available in the vicinity. Still the service providers cannot use that. We know that in particular vicinity we can handle 300 ton, 400 consignments very swiftly, because there are the facilities, there are the infrastructure, but we are unable to use it. Why? Because maybe these infrastructures belong to some defense units, maybe belonging to some shipyard. These are for a special purpose, maybe some export oriented units. They are some special purpose, and in order to utilize that, it is very difficult to convince the industry. It is very difficult at the same time for utilization of a non-commercial port. One needs to go to the maritime board. Maritime boards, they do not give the permission. So keeping all these constraints in, and every time some surprise may come. One more thing I would like to point out, that because industry players are also here, so I must say we as the service provider, what we find very, very difficult, that it is the cost that is important, but many times it has been found that there is a difference, huge difference between the cost of L1 and L2. So L1 and L2, if the difference, say the L1 quotation is 3 crore and L2 quotation is 5 crore, then it is alarming. Then the industry has to understand why is such difference, because most of the times what the industry do, they assign the job on the turnkey completion basis, and turnkey completion basis means it is the service provider, he has to do whatever he has to do, but he has to carry from point A to point B. In between whatever is happening, they just close off their eyes. Closing of their eyes does not eliminate the responsibility. And why I am talking that there has been massive accidents where people have lost lives, their bridges have got collapsed, and all this because the industry, once they consign on the turnkey basis, they think that they have come out of their liability. That does not happen.
Yes, Animesh, I will come back to you.
Yes.
Let us go to another panel expert, Mr. G. Kannan. He is the head supply chain logistic in Larsen & Toubro. Can you introduce a little more? And a question to you, can you share your success story in project cargo tracking systems to help project monitoring to complete the projects on or before time?
Good afternoon, friends. Thanking Economic Times for giving this opportunity and sharing the stage with eminent personalities who have been in the trade. I take care of the logistics and supply chain function at the corporate level. You know, the company itself is a project-based company. We exist because of the various infrastructure projects which are happening around in the country as well as outside. We are present in most of the countries, overseas, mainly in the Gulf region, and we are also there in Southeast Asia. Now, when it comes to monitoring of projects, normally what happens is that before the tender itself is published, or the tender is likely to be published, there is a core team which is set up in the company, and which does a complete estimation that tomorrow, before even quoting, whether this particular project is viable for us. And during this study, which takes about a month, all the complete details are worked out. And after convincing ourselves, after convincing the management that this project is going to give some returns in case we win the project, then only a decision is taken, because every day there are so many tenders which are coming, and as a company we need to pick and choose. We also decide who the final customer is going to be, and we are extremely selective, and a complete risk analysis is done. A risk management process is in place, and after the process is completed and signed off, then only we decide that yes, we must participate. The first and foremost thing what we do is that we decide that this particular project is located at a particular location. We need to study the geography of that location. As Mr. Arun said, most of the time it is a very hilly area, it is a terrain, or it is a barren land, or it is marshy land where we need to set up this project. There are no any approach roads. All the infrastructure needs to be created. And we also need to study the local environmental issues as well as the local culture. What's going to happen in such projects is that multiple consignments are going to come from multiple origins to one single destination. So when multiple origins are involved, not only in India but overseas, there has to be a particular planning, and a sequence of events have to be laid out, that what material is required when, so that all materials don't come in the same time. And based on the sequential requirement of materials at site, the things are organized by the supply chain or by the purchase department, and then the logistics are advised to move in a particular sequence. We also see is that for such large projects, there are normally a lot of cost overruns which happen, because at the time you quote, the time when the project commences, there is a gap of 8 months. Then by the time you complete, there are a lot of time overruns. This happens mainly due to non-availability of land, or local government issues, some clearances which are not available. So what happens is every particular aspect is drawn, a particular team is then allocated, that there is a project team who is overall in charge of the project. Then there are sub-teams which are there, which are responsible for all the particular movements. We monitor once the project is awarded. I think what happens in the Indian context and in the foreign context is that we always believed that we need to execute, and despite planning being the most important things, we tend to slightly overlook the planning thing, and the more you can say more emphasis is on execution of jobs. Whereas in most Western countries, it is all planning. 95% is planning and only 5% is execution. Once your plans are really drawn out, I think nothing can come in the way. And then this precision micro planning which is available, you go through that. We also create a sort of a war room for every project, so that it is monitored at the highest level on a weekly basis. Generally all project meetings happen on a Saturdays, because most of the other days people are extremely busy, working at site or ordering with other things. Your other vendors are available. You need to interact with a lot of other outside agencies, service providers. So Saturday is a day when there is a little off, and on Saturday the whole department sits down, does a complete review every week with the PERT CPM chart, and we ensure that the tracking of every project is done, and you can say calendar wise tracking is done. The years becomes months, the months become weeks, and then the weeks are then split into days. We also find that sometimes certain activities are running behind schedule. Then there is generally a task force which is allotted, a special status to ensure that they come up in they come up on time, and whatever backlog is there is all picked up. We find that most of the projects where we have undertaken, the company has a philosophy that we need to complete the project on time, and not only on time but before time, because most of the projects, if you complete before time, there is a bonus element. Today, when there is massive competition and margins are wafer thin, or rather margins don't exist, I think the icing on the cake is that you should get a bonus, because the earlier you do the project, there are some bonuses which are available. And I think the company has always believed in this philosophy that these additional bonuses are going to make our bottom line better. The top line anyway is there because of the turnover. So we have always been brought into a culture that the project, if it is say 18 months, we have an internal target of only 14 months, and we keep 1 month as a contingency plan. And by and large, to a large extent, wherever we have performed, not only in India but also overseas, where we are not familiar with the surroundings or with the local country regulations, rules and regulations, we have ensured that we collaborate. We try to form a sort of a partnership with a local player there in that country who is very strong, and we have ensured that all the projects which we execute are on time. And that is one of the main reasons why most of the customers, despite having a premium pricing, despite having price, we need to compete with each one. Most of the airports, if you see in the country, modern airports, you take Delhi, you take Mumbai, Bangalore, Hyderabad, all these airports which speakers were talking in the morning, the entire infrastructure for passengers has been built by L&T. We have also ventured into large power projects and executed various projects, not only for NTPC but also in the private sector. We have to a large extent been part of the oil and gas program of the government, not only in India but also overseas. In the Gulf, we play a very major role. We are also into fertilizers. We are also into petrochemicals and and heavy engineering equipments, where most of the equipments are built in the factory and then transported to site. The age of modularization, where 20 years back we had no sizes beyond 100 tons. Now every project, every equipment, every cargo is nothing less than 400, 450 tons. And as the sizes, mega projects come, the sizes are growing bigger and bigger, and you require a lot of expertise. And being an age of modularization, you would like to manufacture everything and then assemble only at site, which not only saves time but also gives you an edge over the competition. So the way we have moved, even selection of the manufacturing site is done based on the project, so that logistically we are able to reach the site in a very short time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kannan. We have another expert in the panel here, Mr. Anand Kulkarni. He is a Senior VP SEM from KEC International. Question to you, sir. You have many projects in remote places. How do you standardize, innovate and move your ODC materials and machinery in shortest time and to have uninterrupted project completion? Thank you.
This is Anand Kulkarni. I work for KEC and I manage the integrated supply chain. So my role starts from the tendering. I manage the procurement, the factory operations in India and our couple of plants overseas, and also the logistics. So I have an end-to-end role. So what we do typically, if you know about KEC is one of the world's largest transmission tower company, and we also got now into the distribution part of it, and we move close to 500,000 tons of material globally. We operate right now in about 32 countries, and we had footprints in about 51 countries so far. And then we source materials from these plus another 7-8 countries, which are mostly the European and American ones. So when and we operate, I mean, KEC, the philosophy is that wherever there is a air, KEC can go and operate a project there. It's a purely project company. And just to build on what everybody spoke about it, when we operate in difficult terrains, that's let me start something on what do we do in the tendering and the planning phase, which is the leading part of the whole execution. So we are going to build some substations now in Leh, Kargil, Dras and Kalhasti. So all the difficult places in the J&K region. So when we bidded itself, we had already made a plan that how are we going to move the materials there. And of course everybody knows the Jawahar tunnels and other things. So we looked into, and of course the duration being 24 months. And so what we do is we do a complete mapping right in the initial stage, the tender stage itself. And then look at the sizes, the GTPs. I'm going a little technical, so we look into the GTPs of the products and then go with a complete package to the LSPs. We normally use large logistics companies who are the project handling people, and so they plan it and then they come back, they do a route survey before we actually bid for that. And then we decide, like in J&K or when we did projects in Kazakh, which is again a very difficult place where we can operate for only few seasons. So we have to projects, we get 2 seasons or 6 months or 7 months. So we decide how do we go about moving those things, and accordingly we bid. And afterwards when we look at the planning, it starts from the supplier selections. Supposing I want to put transformers there, who gives me a transformer with a height less than 3.5 meters which goes through the Jawahar tunnel. So we really look into that, who makes this and whose product fits into that. Since as being an integrated supply chain guy, so I get involved into that planning phase. So into supplier selection itself, we decide who should be the person who can give us the product which can move through those terrains. And we also have alternate plans, like supposing the tunnel, something happens there, something gets stuck or something. So we also looked at how we can airlift the materials. So we look at, there are many projects globally where we have hired the chartered air flights, and then we moved materials by air into that. And then when we string it, there are some difficult areas. Again, we need to look into how do we go about it. So we use drones very exhaustively. Though all these plannings we do right in the initial phases itself, and then we cost it so that we really don't get into the overruns and other things. After that, of course, when the project actually comes in, so basically as I said, we already done the work in terms of the design and engineering of the packaging of the product which actually moves, and then we have a route survey done, and then of course we tie up because with the insurance guys to make sure that we are protected everywhere. And then as the cargo moves, like we have to go and strengthen the bridges. So we have to cut like something when we did a project in Bhutan, there were some arches. So we had to actually dig the road when we are moving a transformer there. We had to bring the road down because we can't really dismantle the arch. So these are all the things which we have to do pretty early in the things. And then what we do is we have a history of each and every project. So whenever we executed a project in a particular area, so we have a QC story kind of a thing which is there. And we also talk to our friends like L&T, who is our competitor and also friend in the business. And there are other people, so we learn from them. We also involve a lot of our suppliers, like my friend Siemens is there. So we involve them, what are the do's and don'ts, and how do we ensure that we are able to move and then lace them and all. So these things, so it's when we move this, it's actually, it is not just a logistics function. We just give it to a good logistics company, project cargo company, but it's a lot of involvement of the suppliers, our engineers, our own supply chain team, and also the customers. And then, as I said, if we have to cut a road, if we have to strengthen the bridge, or if you are moving into a military area using the drones there, so we need to lead lot more statutory clearances and all. So all these things has to work as a complete integrated team, and we have been improving. I mean, continuously we have been working on the last project which we did in Kazakh versus the one which we are going to do it in Ukraine. We also have a big challenge of operating in landlocked countries. So we go and operate in Afghanistan. So we build projects there. So in Afghanistan, as it is, you know, so we have to use, there are only 2 places where we can do. We have to go to Bandar Abbas, which is again banned by the US embargo there. So, and then otherwise you have to go to Karachi, and then managing the Mafinamas and all. These are all new things which I really came across. But we have to do it. So what happens is we really put the people on the floor, right up front, we plan it, use the people, and then move the material there into those locations. And again, if we have no control on how many days I will get a Mafinama in Karachi port. So what we do is we go and build some logistics partners in those places who actually move material from Karachi port to Kabul or all those places. So it's quite a lot. It is not just logistics where you come and call and give a consignment to someone and ask him to deliver. It's a lot more planning, a lot more logistics planning, a lot of design engineering involved in selecting the right source for those, and that's what we do, and we have been successful.
Thank you. We have another panel expert, Mr. Jubain Shah. He is a director from Leeladhar Prasco. So, question to you, sir. You have a large presence in Europe, China, and India. As a logistics solution provider, how do you standardize your SCM processes to optimize on cost, safe, and on-time delivery?
Thank you, Mr. Arun. First of all, just to go into the SCM portion, what I would say is SCM is managing a lot of different variables, bringing it into one scope, and then managing the focus on the scope. So how I would like to answer your question is, in order to standardize our SCM process, keeping the 3 parameters of cost, safety, and on-time delivery, it would be easier to have a step approach wherein I have taken it into 5 different steps of identify, plan, prepare, process, and control. Going deeper into the steps, I would say the identification is really understanding the scope of the operation, wherein as mentioned by the earlier colleagues, the different variables, that is creating the packing list or understanding the packing list which has been created, so that we understand the different sizes, the different variabilities of the different products. Then the movement of the cargo, whether it is a port-to-port movement or it is an inland movement or multiple movements. Again, another variable is the site conditions, wherein there are a lot of, as mentioned by Mr. Arun as well, that they had a challenge moving goods into Jammu and Kashmir. Then the load and discharge ports, wherein there could be variability of water depths, the quay heights, or the swell. Then the technical diagrams would be a very important point, because if there are not enough lifting points or a center of gravity given, then it makes it very difficult to plan the entire operation. Once this study is through, we get into the second stage of planning the operation. That is, it gives us the output of taking the type of vessel, the type of vehicles, and the type of equipments required to do the movement. Any additional equipments if required at the port side if vessel gears are not of use. Any other obstacles faced on the inland routes, because as mentioned earlier by Mr. Kulkarni as well, that they had to use drones in some specific areas. So we do have to plan for these way in advance, in order, because these things will not be made available at the 11th hour. This is something we'll have to really plan. Third portion would be the preparation for the operation as well as the preparation for the safety. In this stage, we can do the planning of preparation for the transport plan, the lifting plan, cargo sequencing if any required, and the stowage plan which can be planned along with the vessel operators, and the documentation also required at each of the ports, because that does make or form an important part. Otherwise it becomes very difficult and the cargo is sitting idling at the port. In the checklist for the safety maintenance in this stage, we can prepare a list of the equipment maintenance, the vehicle maintenance, and the obstacles and permissions required for clearance of the obstacles. This will give us a final sheet of a stage-wise activity plan along with the time estimates. This will become our control document, wherein we have the activities as well as the timelines sitting alongside, and then we can plan for the costs along with that. Most of the costs will be factored in this. Of course, there will be variables, but most of the variables will be taken care of by going into a sheet format while doing the planning. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Pramod Sun, he is VP Head Exports and Imports, Siemens. Question to you, sir. In movement of heavy engineering cargo, you need even to develop infrastructure to ensure safe and fastest deliveries. What are your challenges and how do you mitigate them?
Thank you. So, good afternoon everybody. I will stick to some of my practical experiences. We have, Siemens being a multinational company, we have some knowledge source in Germany and many things are implemented in India. So when we say that, when we talk about infrastructure, I will leave it because everybody knows what is infrastructure. I will talk about infrastructure which needs to be built within organization and with service provider for the safety and efficient operations. So I will focus on that because the road, ports, airports, everybody has talked about. So we need an infrastructure within organization as a customer, as well as we need a good infrastructure with service provider. And what is that? So my experience is that, as my colleagues also, everybody, we have moved so many material for long, ODC, everything. But 2 years back we had a project where Germany thought that they will appoint one supervisor for this handling. And we said not required, it will add cost, etc. But finally we have to allow him. And he came, and first of the transformer, just 200 tons transformer, we moved from port, it went to site, and it was to move to foundation. By that time he got all fed up and he gave a stop order. There is a process that if everything is not right, he can issue a stop order for movement of heavy lift. So he gave a stop order. So first, already we were agitated. We told him he is not from India, he don't understand how the Indian things are handled. We have moved so many transformers across India, hilly region, everything stories. We talked to his boss, but he was determined. He said stop order, stop order. Then finally I decided, my team went there, tried to convince him, nothing. I went to the site and he was calm and quiet. He put a projector, he put a slides. So he saw one truck, and in that truck there was some material was kept. He said, Mr. Sun, when this truck came, I thought it is a scrap material he is bringing. But then I found that these are the equipments what to move the transformer. Then there was another photograph showing how the equipments, everything was kept there, and he said, look at this heap of equipment, how they have kept. Then one more photo where there was a hydraulic jacks and there was oil leakage. He says, see, now that oil has leaked, it has gone into ground and the environment is permanently damaged, you cannot rectify that. Then there was an electrical motor where there was wires, there was no plug. Then equipments, their conditions, so many things he pointed out. He said, Mr. Sun, have I done anything wrong in giving stop order? Then he talked about behavioral issues. He said, this project is known 1 year before. We agreed 6 months before method statement. Method statement was made in detail, discussed, signed, everything. I find that every day in morning the service provider comes. I go to the site at 7 o'clock to 7:30. People start coming at 8. Supervisor comes at 9. and we had a discussions after that for 1 hour. I don't understand, when we know everything, method statement is signed, what are we discussing? So another issue. Then he said that what is written in method statement, what are you doing is not clear, it is different. What equipments are written there, the equipments are different. Or there are some parallel activities can happen, but it never happens. All the people are together at one place, or there is nobody on other operation. So we had a tough time. We said that okay, wait, we will handle it. We had a detailed meeting with service provider. We worked hard that day, night, looked into everything. Equipments were sent back. They were sent for testing again. They were replaced, and 2 days we took, and we learned the hard way. So what happened is that when we talk about safety and efficiency, I think we have a long way to go. There are few topics. One, first of all, we don't believe in any procedures. Even though there is a procedure, we feel that it is to be on paper and we should violate everything in procedure. Then we do not document the things properly. And third, very important thing is that we do not do the risk analysis properly, which is very critical for any project. So this time we have inherent all these problems which are coming, which how to take it out. So also Animesh talked about that we have a challenge that there is a job which somebody has quoted 1 crore, somebody has quoted 5 crores. Then what is the difference? So we have this challenge in company, because you have a service provider who will quote me for taking one transformer 3 lakhs, and another service provider will quote me 10 lakhs. My sales will say that my customers are grumbling that your transport costs are very high compared to anybody else. Then I have to justify. So what happens is that you have to build. If you look at most of the bridges now which are old, you do not have data. It goes with. So we have service provider which are kind, साहब हम लेके जाएंगे, आप फिक्र मत करो. Forget whether that bridge is capable, not capable, they will take it. So you are carrying risk, and as Animesh said that there are accidents, there are damage, there are human loss also in this. So what needs to be done in organization to handle this project effectively? We need to build a team in organization which is capable of taking all these challenges and to get a global standard. One, whether your team need to have a transport engineer, there are people who give me a method statement, but if you are not able to read and point, okay, there is a gap, this is not right, then we cannot do anything. Similarly, the civil engineers, he will say, I will take on this bridge, अभी तक यहाँ से 200 टन का 50 ट्रांसफॉर्मर निकल गया है, तो आप फिक्र मत करो. But the civil engineer needs to say that 201 transformer may take that bridge down. And do you have a civil engineer or an engineer who is capable of understanding what risk we are taking? So we need a civil engineer. Then very important point you mentioned of service provider. So whether it is at tender stage or whether it is at the final contract stage, how you will prepare the tender or RFQ for a service provider is very important. You need to have a person who will really do a minutely detailing of not only that job, but how you will do the financial analysis of service provider, what are his staffs, what jobs he has done in past, where he has failed or where he has done on time. Because you will find that there is so much level of subcontracting that if I take one odd dimension cargo, there are 5 parties will produce in their leaflet that they have done it, because one is a trucks party, one is done route survey, one has been finally installed it. So all 5 will print one photograph of my transformer and say, हमने तुम्हारा तो पहले काम किया है. So you have to be careful. Similarly, route survey, very important point. But route survey, when for one site you tell to 5 parties, you will find that one photograph, or some places photographs are common. One fellow has copied another and there's photographs, and they may be 1 year old also. So you need to have that capability to read that route survey, analyze that and select the right party. So what weightage you will give for their technical staff, what weightage you will give for their equipments or their subcontractors. Again, these projects are so big that they cannot be executed by one party. There is a subcontracting. Whether the subcontracting party is capable of handling, you need to build this team in place who will really analyze everything. One more topic which we pointed out, and good that we have a project monitoring, we have a checklist, we need to have PERT or CPM chart where things are going wrong, because here the things can go any time wrong. You will find that once you are taking the rail coach from Rajasthan border, it goes in 2 days, next time it is there for 10 days line, because of some permission, some issues. So how you will address that? So you need a really experienced team within yourself as well as with service provider, and service provider selection becomes very important. There are people who will do that job in half of the cost or 1/3 of the cost, but you have to take a call to protect your interest so that you select really a right service provider. So with that, I think I will my reply will be, you have to look into these points. These are small points. Nobody says that is a big scientific this thing, but if we don't follow this, then where something will hit you, we don't know. Where we will go wrong, where the extra cost will come, and what risk you are carrying will have tough. When we are having global operations, or if I am taking some of the items to the African countries, then how I am doing my voyage planning, which are the ports which I am going to load, which are the port I am going to discharge, how are they, what are the climatic conditions there. If I do not have a person who knows little of voyage planning, then it is difficult. Then I am only depending on my service provider. He will say everything, and as Animesh mentioned that there will be some loopholes in that, and finally he will come with, okay, this was not considered and now it is going to get delayed, it is going to cost more. So you need to build infrastructure within your organization and with service provider. Then you will be successful in project logistics. Thank you.
Thank you, Pramod. Basically, when you were telling about service provider and his important discharging of the duties becomes very, very critical in case of critical project cargo transportation, I would like to share one of my experience which took place about 7 years before. We were doing a project, Hydel projects, about 60 kilometers from Leh, and we had imported one Fusion brand crane, and we had selected a good local supplier, local transporter who had to carry this consignment from Bombay port all the way to the project near Leh, and the consignment took about 15 days or 17 days to reach. Time bound wise he was okay, but when we started unloading the consignment at our project, we could find the crane, all hydraulic cylinders jammed, and practically we had to bring back that crane to our workshop at Bombay and service that particular new crane. And what went wrong was, he had transported the consignment up to Jammu from Bombay very carefully. Thereafter, he had transshipped at Jammu, and in that truck he had put some of the cement bags above these crane consignments, and cement, you know, being fine powder, it went to the cylinders of the hydraulic cylinders of the crane, and had to have a total season of our project that crane was not available because road got cut off in that particular area in the winter season, and by the time we had to get back this crane, service it and send it back, that crane was not available for the next particular season. So in a nutshell, when you say the offers received from the service provider in such type of cargo, important cargo, project cargo, cost is important, price is important, but we also need to ensure that there are no such type of reliability failures, failing which the some amount of price saved in transportation leading to the construction project loss or delays. With this we are completing the first round, and second round it is a passing on questions. Everyone can pitch in and answer. The only one question we will take so that we will have sufficient time for the question answers to from the audience. The question to the panel member here: many large mega projects in nuclear, hydropower, road, rail, transport, marine are getting clearance from PMO office with new government which has come in since last 1 year. How are you preparing yourself to meet future challenges of gearing yourself with your own materials handling machinery to handle the project cargo or ODC consignments? Can we start from Mr. Sant, from you?
Yeah.
We'll go back this way.
Yeah. Okay. So if you look at, everybody is waiting because अच्छे दिन आने वाले हैं, उसके लिए everybody is waiting. So everybody is really prepared. And when there is a little lean time, you think more. when it is always there that if you work anytime worked in factory or in offices, when there is less load, the bosses and everybody comes with different idea and keep people busy. So the same way you are already geared up, really speaking, for achieving. Number one is the team or a service provider or project. So here I wanted to clarify that we generally outsource everything. We don't use any of our equipment. So everything is outsourced. Only we have our own manpower which has been put on controlling. So that is how we are. So we have really geared up. What we have done is that we have an advantage that we are able to depute our people. If there is less project here, then we are able to depute these project people to the Middle East in Siemens where there are projects going on, or in our group companies. So that is how we keep the people really more continuously on learning curves that they become busy. Otherwise, if you look at the project people, if there is no project, then he becomes really restless and he is really, there is a danger that he will be leaving the company. So it is always beneficial. So we try to keep, number one, the people into project mode with one or another project. Secondly, you keep yourself trained, which is available from your principals or with various courses which are now available on heavy lift and other things. And third thing is that, most important thing is that you keep on learning, and this is a good forum, and here we have the eminent panelists. This is the most important thing, that you learn from your colleagues or from industry what are the best practices, so that you can take on tomorrow's challenge of, and let any order come, but you are really prepared. This is how we keep ourselves ready.
Yeah, Mr. Jubain, thank you.
Thank you. Just to add on to what Mr. Sant has said, I think most important part is building a team. Building the human infrastructure is one of the most important things, because they will be the control point for everything. Apart from that, what would be really important is setting up proper vendor lists in case of outsourcing of certain areas. Along with that, also upgrading yourself regularly with the new technology coming up for carrying of different projects, either the movement by road or also on the equipments. That being on the key side, that will allow you to grow better and also perform better on the projects and deliver a smile to the client.
Yes, Mr. Kulkarni.
We are not majoritarily,
That
we
area.
don't operate in this space, but whatever the things which comes into this space is basically like we use third-party service providers, and since we operate in different countries and we operate projects there which are whether it is a Heidel or whatever, so there is a lot of learning which comes as a natural one, but otherwise we don't see any major challenges for ourselves in building any specific capability, unless we go into, when we are getting into wastewater treatment and water purification system, salination plant, desalination and all which we are looking. That's the time we have to really look into, but typically we'll depend more on the service providers. And
I would like to share some of my experience related to the project cargo. We have a project at Bogibil, which is about 20 kilometers from Dibrugarh in Assam, and it is a steel bridge, and it is a road cum rail bridge. There is a 4.7 kilometer such long bridge with 39 spans, and each span having 125 meters long. Huge bridge, huge bridge. It being a steel bridge, it needs major material as steel plates, and total quantity of the project steel plates are about 75,000 tons. Special copper bearing plates which are manufactured by only 2 or 3 steel mills in India. And we had sourced either from SAIL or SR. These are the two sources we were in a position to manufacture and give. The width of the plates were as high as around 3.6 or 3.65 meters. And you can imagine moving such type of wider plates from Hajirat to all the way to Assam. And moving this itself was a challenge. Some of the quantities were up to 3 meters. We had moved it by using the rail transport. Otherwise, the wider plates we had to move by the trailer, which was taking on an average about 28 to 30 days from Hazira to all the way to Bogeyville. Now, initial as a lot, we had moved this consignment by road. Then we found out it is becoming expensive. We suggested SR, why you are not in a position to move it by sea, and they took a challenge and they moved some consignment from Hazira via particular Arabian Sea, Indian Ocean and Bay of Bengal, that up to Haldia. And it was the first challenge which they took to move up to Haldia and move from Haldia to Bogeyville by road, and they were on the way of working subsequently to move from even Haldia to further up to Bogeyville by the river. So it is not the only rail, it also amounts to moving the consignment by the sea, which is cheaper, better, faster, and full consignment going in one lot has a lot of administrative savings are concerned. These are the challenges which we may have to take in a future large projects of mega nature which is going to come, which will have much wider such type of plates which are going to be needed, or much wider ODC consignment. Can you, Kumar, throw some light on this question?
As my colleagues spoke, the best time for preparation, the best time to ponder, best time to brainstorm is during the time when the jobs are less. The last 18 months, I think most of the companies, the jobs requirements have been very less. So I think we have undertaken a sort of a study of the various previous projects, what we did, where we went wrong, and what are the new technologies which have come, and where we could improve. We have also ensured that people are now multi-skilled, in multidisciplinary functions, so that a person who is trained in a particular thing, tomorrow if he is required and if there is an emergency, he is also able to execute other jobs. We also felt that we are over dependent on service providers, and all our knowledge and all our knowledge sharing comes based on that. So we also tried during this lean period, where we visited a number of places, since we had time which was available, places where we felt some projects are likely to come, and some projects where we have undertaken earlier. What are the challenges which would come in future, and how we could address that. We are also have no assets of any transport or anything. We are purely dependent on service providers. And we also studied that why there is so much of disparity of cost when somebody gives price, when there is a huge variation. Even when we quote for our customers, normally the price difference between L1 and L2 is 25%, 30%. So we also went into the nuances, that where we have a chance to lower our prices, or what is the competitor, so USP, that where he is able to quote cheaper prices. And basically it all bogged down that maybe most of the marketing team told us that it is because of logistics and supply chain where we have lost the orders. And each time whenever there was a survey or a meeting which was there, a review meeting, the only thing which came up, and we found that our team has been competing in places like Russia, Kazakh and Ukraine, and they expect that Europeans who are next door and who can do a road transportation, you can't. They say their logistics costs are very cheap, whereas we manufacture everything in India and carrying that, despite the cost difference in manufacture being lower. So we felt that these are all certain things which we need to educate, and making logistics as a scapegoat for everything should not be there. And we also educated the team, the marketing team, that what sort of things you need to look at, what are the risks involved, and if you really need to go at such distant places, places where you need to do business, I think you need to take the logistics team into confidence. And that is one of the main reasons is now for various oil and gas projects which are overseas in those difficult areas, a team from our side has visited and done a complete survey, so that we are not dependent on what the logistics service provider says, because he does not know what my requirement is. He gives you a general trend, a picture of what has happened in the past, but then the type of shipments we have, the type of navigation you need to do, all these things need to be studied. Coming to the domestic front, as Arun said about transportation, I think the new government has given a new fillip for development of waterways. About 101 rivers are likely to be connected. There is going to be a big boost, like European countries where 65–70% moves by water, and rail and road dependence is very less. If you see the port of Antwerp, all the equipment, all the manufacturers who are spread around Europe, everything comes by barge. I don't think why we should not use it in a similar way with Mumbai port, where all things come by road and the port becomes chock-a-block. It becomes extremely difficult, especially for break bulk movement, especially where Mumbai port is located. So I think these are all things, the Sagarmala project which we have talked about, which we have talked for a very long time. I think if that vision and that mission is likely to be implemented, I think we will be able to save a lot. And coastal transportation and inland navigation, water navigation, where now large amounts of coal for the coal projects from Farakka, from Haldia on the river Ganga has started moving for NTPC. It's a great thing which has happened, which was earlier being moved by rail in the very choked corridor. And we have also tried that wherever possible, wherever opportunities are there, leave alone the cost, where in the new policy which has been drafted, some sort of a subsidy has also been given for moving goods by by water. There is also some, we have been lobbying with the government for change of cabotage rules, where the rules are archaic rules and it becomes extremely difficult for moving project cargo in foreign vessels because of the various conditions. I think couple of meetings have happened, and I think we are also moving in the right direction. I think the transportation by water is going to be the key for all project related movements in future. And unless you have a waterfront, and unless water is used not only for project cargo but also for hazardous and other bulk cargo, the answer by road is going to be very, very difficult, despite the flyovers, despite the highways, where we are also going to have roads around the four corners of the country, linking the whole country. These are not going to be the solution, but water is going to be the best solution, because it is not only accident free, but also you have what is called as water highways. That is the trend which is there, which is catching up in various other countries, and such water highways are going to be the answers for moving such project consignments in the future.
Nimish, will you excuse me?
Yes.
We are running short of time. We'll take questions.
I will take 2
Yeah,
minutes
yeah,
of time. Yeah.
please.
Actually, why I requested him to give me some time, because Mr. Kannan, he talked about the industry. I have a different paradigm. We will discuss the other side of the paradigm. Like whenever we go to market as a service provider, the first basic question is asked, which are the equipments do you own? In many even pioneer engineering organizations, this is a prerequisite for a freight forwarder or a project logistics company wants to enter their company as a vendor. They should own certain equipments, and they have the list of the equipments, and as per the list of the equipments you are entitled to become a vendor. So at this point of time, it becomes, it does not sound, it sounds to me a little difficult, little embarrassing, because it is just like that when we are living in a very high-tech world. Suppose in order to carry a consignment, there are two requirements. One is the equipment and other is the skill. It's like we have a high-tech hospital. If we have a high-tech hospital, then any skilled doctor can come and operate successfully. But if the high-tech hospital is having all kind of facilities and equipment, and the doctor is there, is not so qualified, even if he is qualified, he is not so skilled, then what the equipments will do? So what I find that it is not good for the industry to ask the service providers, which equipments do you own? Your question should be, which equipments you are going to use, because every operation, every project logistics operation is a critical operation. and every project logistics operation has different category of equipments requirement. If I own one equipment, my equipment may be fit for some of the projects, but that may not be fit for the other projects. And if I am going and I am qualifying just by virtue of owning that equipment, it does not sound there is no scientific reason, there is nothing logical about that. So one thing I will request the industry, that of course you be very particular that which are the equipments going to use, and each and every project logistics company or the industry, when you imbibe a project logistics, you have the method statement, and the method statement defines the equipments going to be used. So the compliance of those equipments only are used. The factory should be adamant about that. Like your operations was stopped midway by the German engineer coming from Germany, because the kind of equipment that was defined in the method statement, the same equipment was not there. Because the equipments should be tested, and if it is tested at one point of time, does not imply that the other point of time the same might be that much functional. Now one more, I take little time, one more thing I would like to address, that one experience I would like to share, that we had been the agents, forwarding agents for a ship engine making company. So we used to import lots of ship engines, and we used to deliver it to the various shipyards. So these ship engines were coming into almost 100 ton 3 units. At one point of time, one particular shipyard called us that your cost has been almost double. I have the quotation from the market, and the price you are charging is more than the double. So what you have been doing for so long? Then as a person, I could realize that might be some manipulation in the kind of equipment being used, because sensitive consignments, there are certain critical circumstances where the consignment can be planned in a mechanical trailer, the same consignment should be planned on the hydraulic trailer. So it is a very critical circumstances, which one to plan where, what is the importance of the consignment, how it is going to be delivered, and if there is any accident, how it is going to cost. Everything has got a cost factor. So I came to know that there was a change in the management, and the new management wanted to show that the old management was just losing money for the company, and for that he was paying more than double that we are going to charge, that he was paying more than the double that he is going to employ. Unfortunately, there was an accident, because it was the mechanical trailer, so it got toppled in the route, and that shipbuilding got deferred for almost 6 months, because we had been a part of the engineering team from the supplier side. N number of engineers came. It took 6 months to decide whether it can be repaired here in India or it has to be brought back to Korea.
It needs to be definitely work between the customer and the service provider to get to a solution.
Yes.
It cannot be from one end that this is what the requirement is, and it is given to the service provider doesn't understand it, he quotes it, and then the customer gets into the problem, right?
So I would like to conclude that when you ask that, which are the equipments, because heavy engineering imports are going to be done, so many efforts being made by the company, which are the equipments we are going to own? I think the better question will be, which are the equipments we are having the access, which are the equipments we know, which are the technology we know, which are the limitations of the port, under what limitation, what technology will be used. Like in one consignment, when we planned Ro-Ro loadout at Mumbai port, floating Ro-Ro loadout, it was for the first time we planned at Mumbai port, some 400 plus ton consignment, and everybody was asking the question, if any accident, then what?
Correct.
But dedication to the method statement and technology, and what equipment we are going to use, and how much access exposed we are to the equipment, that is very important.
Thank you, Mr. Animesh. This is the time for questions from the audience, please. Any questions from the audience? Yeah.
Good evening. Myself is Vivek Singhi from Strapping Solutions. I have a question for Mr. Kannan. What kind of lashing materials are to be used to secure this cargo, and how to judge these lashing materials, or how these lashing materials are being judged by your team?
See, generally, lashing is part of the transport, management system. In the case of lashing, generally previously we were using all hard lashing material, chains and other things. Now we have moved over a period of time, and now there are a lot of protocols which are involved, and the customer himself, gives the specification of these lashing equipment. Mainly these turnbuckles, the other type of lashing, the soft type of lashing material is what is used. For very heavy equipment, we also use what is called as a wooden garland, and around that so that the equipment doesn't get damaged during the long transit which happens not only in domestic but also in the international sector. Generally what happens is when the equipment is being transported internationally, that is over the ocean or in water, the lashing is of a different type. And all the lashing material, what we insist is that these are all to be from approved vendors. We insist on that. We also insist upon certificates, that these are all tested and generally supplied by approved vendors. The customer or the consultant informs us that these are the type of material which are to be used or to be sourced. So we always ensure that when we make the method statement or when we deal with the service provider, and generally all this lashing equipment, we would, for such costly equipments where they are costing 200-250 crore rupees, it should be used only once, that is first time, and not the old material, because there is a practice in India that the same old, what I should say, the ones which are stained or which have over a period of time corroded or with lot of corrosion which has taken place, these are the type of materials which come into the factory. So we have made it a point that lashing is of utmost importance. And then now you also know that all these things are to be inspected by a surveying agency, and the surveyor along with the insurance agent ensure that we use all standard material, because we would not like to take a chance for and stick our neck out that something goes wrong somewhere, because it has happened in the past is that because of some lashing, during the curves on the road transportation, some of the lashing material has given way, and we had just you can say escaped from a major accident. And we always found that in India we have used the chain method. We have now, I think, graduated into soft lashing, where the markings or other things do not come. We have also seen that in India we make the best of equipments. We are also accepted as a global manufacturer, but then when it comes to final presentation, when it comes to final packing, when it comes to lashing, which is the last thing which happens on the logistics, we always have not bothered to take much care. And we also do not cover these equipments with tarpaulin and other things because of the vagaries of nature which happens en route, especially when the ship is traveling around the globe, place in India where it is monsoon time, and then when you go, there is severe summer in the Gulf, and then if you go to the United States or to Russia, the temperature is very cold. So I think these type of materials, there are a lot of international suppliers, and we have insisted that these are to be sourced from them along with the test certificates. And if we have any doubts, what we do is we refer to the supplier and we get our doubts cleared, and we go to only standard manufacturers or OEMs from where we source all this lashing material. Thank you.
Any other question, please?
Do you guide the vendors for packing of the equipment or maybe the cargo? Because the issue is, sometimes you have a problem in packing of the equipment, particularly during traveling, and you have problems when it reaches your destination. So what sort of guidance given?
I'll give an example to you with my experience is concerned. You might have seen in the marine job, a platform is created for working, which is called jack-up platforms. Now these jack-up platforms need to be moved from one project to other project. And one such jack-up platform we had moved from Bandavarli sealing project all the way to Udupi at South Canara in Karnataka. Now this jack-up platform has spuds which rest on the water base seabed while working in the sea, and when it is to be moved, the spuds are taken up, the extra spuds are removed, packed on it, and then it is tugged off. Now you can imagine the spuds are about 2-meter diameter and 13-meter long. It is put on the jack-up platform, and jack-up platform moves in the sea for so many kilometers with the waves. There is possibility that this unbalance is created, and some of the cases in such transportation, spuds have fallen in the sea. So how do you pack them properly? There are methodologies which are involved, even including sort of a welding to be done and de-welding to be done at the place when it is required. So these are the cases where there are written down instructions by earlier experience, or the recommendation given by the manufacturers of such equipment, which is followed and ensured for the safe delivery is concerned. There are many cases where instead of wire rope being tied up, many of the people have seen that a damage has taken place. When we were transporting huge number of new plates, and if you are done with the wire and it is a trimmed rectangular plates, it will lose its shape. So it needs proper type of the packing consignments of that type of plate for such long journey of maybe 2000 kilometers. So the packing, lashing are not standardized. It depends on individual cases with the experience, and that need to be followed. Any other questions? Otherwise we will end up. Okay, thank you very much all the panel experts. One more question.
Yeah.
Last question please.
Yeah. Good evening sir. This is Rajesh Kakani from Balkrishna Industries Limited. We are going to import some tractors from Germany and Italy for field testing for our Bhuj plant in Gujarat. These tractors will come in Ro-Ro vessel, and a Ro-Ro vessel will come to Mumbai port. Why such vessels are not coming to Mundra port? Ro-Ro vessels are not allowed to come to Mundra port. What is the reason behind this?
See, Ro-Ro facility has to be made. I think that Ro-Ro facility is not available in Mundra port, and as a policy, Mundra is always doing mainly coal imports, break bulk and containers. This particular facility is not available. That is one of the main reasons why it is not allowed to come. It is depending on the port authorities whether they would like to. You can use Kandla port, which is next door, or you can use Pipavav if that facility is available there. I think Kandla would be a better choice for you in case Mundra is not there, because the ports are only 45 kilometers apart.
You meant to say some extra specialties is
yeah, some
required
facility is required for a Ro-Ro vessel. So I think Kandla would be a better choice.
Okay.
And Kandla is available. I think you please check, or I can tell you that Kandla port is available.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, panel members. And we have a memento for you which we'd like to give you. So for which I request Mr. Rishi Kapoor to kindly come forward and present the mementos to our panel members. Yeah, we'll present it to all of you. I think that's right. We'll present it to all of you.
Group photo.
Yeah, Mr. Rishi Kapoor will present it.
Achha.
Yes, first to our moderator for the session, Mr. Arun Banwale. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, that's our last panel discussion.